Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting this evening and to let you know that this meeting is being recorded. We will begin in just 1 minute. Okay, we'll go ahead and begin this meeting. We can go to the next slide. And welcome, we are having this community meeting this evening to talk about SacSewer proposed air quality permits. And this meeting is being recorded and we will go ahead and go into logistics.
Hasta muy buenas tardes y bienvenidos a todos. A través de esta reunión vamos a tener interpretación simultánea tanto en persona como en línea. En línea, para unirse a la interpretación, ya hemos encendido la funcionalidad, así es que si usted está usando una computadora o una tableta, usted va a seleccionar el icono que aparece un mundo abajo de su pantalla. Después de seleccionar el icono que aparece un mundo, usted va a seleccionar interpretación, va a seleccionar su lenguaje de preferencia, en este caso va a ser español. Selecciona silenciar el audio original y todo lo demás estará listo para utilizarse. Ya que si usted está usando un teléfono, un celular, una tableta, su función sí es diferente. Did we incorporate the slide with the visuals? Si usted está usando un celular o una tableta, sus opciones son distintas. Usted va a necesitar seleccionar los 3 puntitos que están abajo de su pantalla que indican More o más opciones. Después de seleccionar More o más, usted va a deslizar hacia arriba, selecciona Español. No olvide silenciar el audio original y por último, oprima finalizado, done o activar para que se active la función. For all of our monolingual English-only speakers, if you are joining us either on a computer or a cell phone, you will have the option to select interpretation. This meeting will be conducted with simultaneous interpretation, activated both in person and online. So if you are online and are joining us via a cell phone or a tablet, you can select interpretation. To select interpretation, please select the world like icon on a computer. If you're on a cell phone or a tablet, your options are different. You will need to select the 3 little dots that indicate more. Once you select either the world like icon or the 3 dots that indicate more, go to language interpretation, select English, and we'll be good to go. If we do have any comments or participation in Spanish, you will hear the live interpretation occurring. Thank you. And just a few logistics for in-person. Let's try to keep one mic, one voice. We do have owls around the room and they capture everything. So we have side conversations and we have comments amongst us. They will all get captured and the difficulty will be trying to read over the voices. So or listen over the voices. So let's definitely try to keep one mic, one voice. Anyone who does have a public comment or any questions, we would appreciate it if you use the mic. If we do have any public comments or questions to address to the rest of the room. This way, the interpreters and participants online can all hear everything that is being said. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to welcome our in-person visitors and those online. And I'd also like to introduce our speakers for this evening from the Air District. My name is Amy Roberts. I'm the Director of the Engineering and Compliance Division. And we also have Brian Krebs. He is our Program Manager for our permitting program. We also have Sunny Lund, who's the Director of the SacSewer Agency. And we also have Steve Novozic. And we'll each be taking turns throughout this evening's presentation. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Sarah, who will give some additional information and logistics for this evening's meeting.
So we have some in-person and virtual reminders. We might be pausing to make adjustments throughout the meeting to ensure that equitable engagement for in-person and virtual attendees. For in-person attendees, if you have a question, please raise your hand. For virtual attendees, if you have a question or comment, please raise your virtual hand or type your question or comment into the chat. We will take public in-person questions and comments before and then public online after. Some additional logistics for virtual folks. You can also message the host or co-host if you're having any technical difficulties, or email the cap@airquality.org email for assistance. During the discussion period at the end of the meeting, there are some instructions here on how you can raise your hand to participate. You can click either participants or reactions and then click raise hand. On the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your virtual hand. When you are called on, please state your name and affiliation and unmute yourself using *6. As mentioned before, the questions and comments will be at the end of the meeting. As a reminder, we just went over, but please follow the guidance below for in-person and virtual attendees.
All right. I'll go ahead and walk through our agenda for this evening. So we have gone through our welcome and our introductions. We will also dive into our presentation. We will begin this evening's meeting with a little bit of why we are here and why we are bringing this to your attention. Then we will have SacSewer give a presentation. And then Brian and myself will go through the Sac Metro Air District presentation on our permitting process and the permit that we're going over this evening. And as we just mentioned, I'll say again, we'll have questions and comments. We'll have about a 30-minute period beginning at 7 o'clock. And our meeting will adjourn at 7:30. Next slide, please. To give you some information about why we're here this evening, first of all, the SacSewer agency, and in particular the wastewater treatment plant, is a facility of interest for our region. Here at the Sac Metro Air District, we have an important program that we have been working on for several years. It is legislation that was passed, AB 617, which established a community in the Sacramento area, in South Sacramento, Florida area in particular. This was established in 2018. This involved a selection of a steering committee that have been meeting since 2018 to develop a community air monitoring plan. And this community has a particular boundary that they have been working in. Recently, this community has also determined that they would like to expand their boundaries. The map on this slide does show these expanded boundaries. That is the red dashed or dotted line that you see on the map. And this new boundary area does now encompass the SacSewer facility. The community has for several years been interested in this facility to understand some of the activity that goes on there, such as the flaring that happens at this facility. We have answered questions on that. They also wanted additional information on the operations of the facility. And because we are going through a permit process at this time, we felt it was important to bring this information on our actions to the community and share more information. This particular project is also of interest for the Air District because it does involve equipment that is part of a clean energy transition, which is a good thing for air quality. This is the other reason why we wanted to bring this matter to the community. Next slide, please. And with that, I will turn it over to Sunny and Steve.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be here. I am, again, once again, I'm Sonny Lundy. I'm the Director of Operations for the water facility located very close to here. We're part of SacSewer district in the area, and I have with me Steve Nabozic. We have about 10 slides we're going to go through real briefly. I'm going to talk a little bit about the facility itself. Let you know what we're doing out of the facility. We treat wastewater. And then a little bit about the system, a little bit about serving the community, a little bit about our collection system, a little bit about the treatment plant itself, and then understanding the treatment process. Walk you briefly through the process that we use out there to treat and recover resources. And then Steve's going to talk a little bit about the Biogen project, transition to renewable energy, and there. So, next slide. Oh, sorry, one more slide. It should have been. This is an overview or schematic of our sewer system. In the most upper left-hand corner of it is the residents and the commercial properties that contribute to the sewer system. They're all connected at the highest level, and then they flow out into smaller pipes and then flow into bigger pipes and then into pump stations and then even to larger pipes. You can kind of think of it as the street system. There are residential streets, you go out to arterials, you go out to freeways, then highways. And eventually all of that flow makes it down to the Echo Water Resource Recovery Facility. And the facility itself is really about that. It's about recovering resources. And the resources we recover there are biogas, biosolids, and recycled water at this location. It's very important that we share this with our community and they know what we're doing. Because many of you guys here or online are ratepayers, and it's good to know what you guys are getting for your service. So, serving you 24/7. We are a 24/7 operation, year round. The flow keeps coming. We're always proud and there to treat it. Our service area is indicated here by the light colors and the light beige and the dark beige colors. The dark beige colors are areas in which we do collections and treatment. And then the light beige areas are areas where another city does collection, but we do the treatment at the Echo Water facility. So we serve this entire area. It includes areas, unincorporated areas of Sacramento County, Citrus Heights, Elk Grove, Folsom, Rancho Cordova, Sacramento, West Sacramento, the communities of Portland, Locke, and Walnut Grove as well. Next slide. A little bit about the collection system. Collection system is the second largest collection system in California, only behind LA San. Again, it's a 24-hour operation. Call us first if you have any sewer problems. Come out free of charge. The collections department will come out within 2 hours. We have service levels that we want to respond to very quickly. It's come out 2 hours, and we will restore if it's the problem is in our portion of the sewer. We'll restore service. Our goal is restored within 4 hours. So we're very proud of meeting the service level. We have a 95% target on the service level, and we're typically running about 99% of the time. We're meeting both these service levels. The collections system has more than 300 qualified staff. There's just some stats and fast facts. There's 70,000 manholes. There's 117 pump stations that help lift or push the sewage from the upper part of our service area to the lower part. We cover 386 square miles. And we have 5,000 miles of sewer pipe. And if you stack those sewer pipes end on end, it would go to Tennessee and back. Next slide, please. The Echo Water facility was not originally called the Echo Water facility. We had an Echo Water project for the last decade where we upgraded the Echo Water treatment plant to a tertiary treatment plant, and the project itself or the program itself was called Echo Water, but we liked the name so much that it was well known. We renamed our treatment plant to the Echo Water Resource Recovery Facility. And this facility is the second largest of its kind in the nation. It was again a 24/7 operation. We have more than 400 qualified staff out at the treatment plant. We're working to treat and recover resources. And we're committed, both collections and the Echo Water facility are committed to delivering on our mission, which is to collect, treat, convey, treat, and collect wastewater, protect the environment and the community. That backwards. Little couple of facts. We do 90,000. We have a state-of-the-art laboratory. We do 90,000 laboratory tests a year. We treat and remove 99% of pneumonia. We serve 1.6 million population. We have a 304 million gallon recycled water, which we're currently expanding to significantly more. We have 1,000 acres of process area surrounded by 2,000 acres of buffer lands around the area. We have a permitted capacity of 181 MGD and a average flow capacity of 150 million gallons per day. That's what MGD is. Sorry. Next slide. This is an overview of our treatment process. Basically, it comes in from the north on the influent and the arrow pointing down. But if you look at the number 1, it comes into our primary treatment process. Primary treatment process consists of bar screens that help remove large objects. It consists of grit removal, which removes the smaller particles and the grit that's in the system, and then primary sediment tanks. And the primary sediment tanks help settle the sludge that's in the process and the foam that's in the process, and it removes those two. That sludge goes to our biosolids process located up here by number 4 and in yellow. But after the primary process, it flows to the secondary process, which is located here in green and the number 2. It flows to our bionutrient removal process. And this is kind of the heart of our plant that does all the biological work. A lot of microorganisms eat up the organics, and they're given oxygen, and they basically get fat and happy and fall out of suspension to the bottom, and they're part of the sludge as well. And we collect that sludge and it goes to the solids process. The last process is a tertiary process. It is indicated by blue or the number 3 here. And it's a filtration process where we filter the wastewater, and then we disinfect the wastewater with chlorine. And it goes through a serpentine area here where it has contact time. And then after disinfection, we use sodium bisulfite to neutralize that chlorine. Right now, it returns back to the red area and then it's discharged out to the Sacramento River. In the future, we'll be able to discharge to the South County area, and we'll have a lot less discharge up to the Sacramento River. We'll be recovering that valuable resource of recycled water. The solids portion, indicated in yellow, it has digesters. Currently we take the gas and we ship it next door to SMUD, and SMUD takes it offsite to the Rio Consumers Correctional Facility where they burn the biogas and create power. We also have biosolids that we use, and we recycle 25% of our biosolids, and we land apply the other 75%. But it's this biogas that we're getting ready to utilize on site, which is our biogen generation project.
Down a little and mic close.
Closer further.
Mic close and slow down.
Okay. The red star here on the map indicates where the biogeneration facility is going to be. And to talk about the biogeneration facility, Steve's going to present.
Thank you, Sunny, and good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Nabozit. I'm an engineer that works at the Echo Water facility, and I'm providing support to the Biogen project. And to start, thanks, Sunny, and good evening, everyone. As sorry, let me gain where I am. Okay. As we zoom back out in this slide, I want to start with why we need to do this project. The yellow digesters that, if you don't mind, just go back to the other slide really quick, just to remind everybody. Those yellow, the yellow box in the, towards the top right, those are our digesters. That's where the solids go, and that's where our gas is being produced. We can go back up to the zoomed out slide. And, as Sunny mentioned a few times, it's a 24/7 operation. Well, that methane gas is being produced 24/7. We need a place to dispose of it. 2-3 decades ago, it was looked at as disposal. So that flare that sometimes people see when they look across our property line, that's when our gas doesn't have a place to go. And that used to be standard practice years ago, but over the decades, it's rare that that happens now. This is a very valuable resource. We can create energy with it. It's what happens right now. And now, as Sunny mentioned, we're going to bring that back on site. So as we look and as we look towards what we are going to do, we look towards our environmental stewardship values and the alternatives, the goals for the alternatives that we evaluated for bringing the gas and making beneficial use of that gas on our site. Is we need to reliably use the gas on site. We want to reduce flaring to the extent possible. We also want the ability to meet all applicable regulations, which is why we are here with our partners at the Air District. We want the ability to satisfy our core mission of resource recovery by providing enough heat for the digestion. Those digesters take heat. They have to be run at almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the solids stay in there for 15 days in order to be processed and create the gas. That heat isn't free normally. Right now, there's natural gas that's combusted next door to us at SMUD to provide us that heat. That heat, once we switch over to biogen, no longer, it will be renewed heat from the recovered heat from the processes. That it would be recovered heat from the processes of the biogen project that I'll do, and I'll describe what that equipment is shortly. And the last goal that we wanted to meet was to benefit our ratepayers in terms of financial viability as we delivered this renewable project. Slide. So on this slide, I just want to describe exactly what we plan to do with this gas. We want to send it to equipment that we're going to construct and put in a building on site. It's going to total 13.4 megawatts of capacity, and that's going to be with 4 2.65 megawatt engines for a total of 10.6 megawatts of capacity coming from internal combustion engine generators. And then we also have something that is very new to the state, and there's not a lot of these deployed. And this is what Amy referenced at the beginning of the meeting. That 2.8 megawatt fuel cell, that's a near zero emission technology. They are starting to be implemented. There's not they haven't been. This will be one of the first sites at such a large scale. There's only a couple others in California like this. We're really excited about this to be able to bring this to the community and help prove it that it works. So more people can also consider deploying these when they have projects similar to ours. And the fuel cell also allows for future hydrogen capability. And while we don't need hydrogen for our treatment plant purposes, there is interest in the general community and by the Air District and by our state leadership to refuel cars, and hydrogen is going to be looked at as a solution for some of those long distance transport trucks, things that maybe batteries might not work for all applications. So hydrogen power is going to be important to the community going forward as well. So those are all things that this project's delivering, things that we're proud of. And I want to speak a little bit to, some of the other steps that we did as we were describing this project, working with the Air District, going through the environmental process. When we packaged up our permit application, we tried not to leave a lot of work. There was a lot of work for the Air District. You're going to see when Brian gives his presentation, but we tried to do our due diligence too. So we surveyed all the California air districts. We looked for the toughest controls of all air districts in California that were that deploy these types of technologies, and made sure we included those. Those are the targets that we used in our evaluation before handing it to the independent evaluation that Brian's going to go through. We wanted to ensure that we were applying best available emission controls to the engines. And again, that fuel cell is near zero emission technology, and we're proud of that. Slide. The last slide that I want to share is just a little bit of timeline. So if you're driving by and you see, if you wonder what's happening and whatnot, you have an idea. We released proposals for this project in March of 2023, and then at the same time initiated the California Environmental Quality Act process, the CEQA review. And that's where all the regulatory agencies and the public have an opportunity to weigh in on the project. So we conducted that, and then when that work was done, which always goes up front in front of the project and is part of the project approval, proposals were received in July. And we closed out CEQA in September of 2023. And then negotiated the final contract. We got approval from our board to execute a contract with the selected contractor who's going to come and design and build this facility. The contract was awarded in February of this year. It's a design build contract. They're going to start with design. We're designing now, and design build allows you to actually start construction before your design's over. So this is a procurement method that allows us to, we're awarding a contract and starting construction for a major project in the same year, which is hopefully help us save on some costs for the ratepayers, and also construct this thing more efficiently. We look to begin construction in October, break ground in October, and then of this year, just a couple months, and then in July of 2026 is when we plan to have commercial operation. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, change the slide one last time. This is a QR code and links to our various social media sites. We do conduct public tours throughout the year. We have at least 12 tours that the public can sign up for and attend. And if you're interested in seeing what's out there, I highly encourage it. It's actually, we get a lot of good feedback from the people who attend it, and they really like the public tours. So either whether here or online, feel free to use this link and find out about our public tours, and hopefully sign up for one, and we'll see you out there.
Thank you very much, Sunny and Steve. We'll go ahead and move on to the Sac Metro Air District presentation. Next slide, please. And one more. Okay, first in our presentation, we'll be doing a high-level overview of our air quality permitting process. Next slide, please. What I wanted to cover with everybody first, before I hand the microphone over to Brian, is to give a sense of the air quality permitting process and what it does for protecting public health and how it helps reduce emissions. So first, when we receive an application, this is the first step in us being able to review and ensure that that facility is not emitting air quality or air pollution at levels that are above strict and standard thresholds. The process requires the cleanest technology to be installed, and it also provides a way for the public to make comment. And so there's a transparent of the permitting process. So just to give you a sense that when we permit equipment through the air district at the local level, there is this very standard way that we go about doing that in order to ensure that there is no impact to the public. So with those general comments, I'll go ahead and turn the microphone over to Brian.
Next slide, please. Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Once again, my name is Brian Krebs. I'm the program manager in the permitting department of the SacSewer district. Essentially what we have here is kind of again, a very top level look at the air quality permitting process. And it really starts at the Federal Clean Air Act, which establishes the air quality permitting requirements and gives us our regulatory authority. From there, once we receive a permit application, we have what we call prohibitory rules, which are very site-specific or equipment-specific rules. But in addition to that, we have this overarching rule called new source review. And all new projects go through new source review. And it's our district rule 202. And then from there, Rule 202 has two major aspects of it, and the two are, and it's been alluded to several times. First is called best available control technology, and that is where we established for certain equipment or the equipment that's being evaluated, what is the best available control technology that is needed for that type of equipment. The other major aspect of the rule is called emission offsets. And this is for facilities that have the emissions for the project above certain thresholds. They have to offset their emissions. In other words, they have to come up with what are called emission reduction credits to offset the emissions from the plant or the project. So those are the two major cornerstones of new source review. In addition to that, we also go through thorough health risk assessment for those types of equipment that potentially emit toxic pollutants. And then lastly, projects of a certain size, we go through a public notice period. It's a 30-day public comment period, which includes not only the public, but specific notice goes to our oversight agencies, the California Air Resources Board, and federal EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Lastly, once we go through all that process and we address any and all comments that we receive during the public comment period, we would issue what we call an authority to construct. And the authority to construct is a conditional permit. It has a bunch of conditions on it that the plant or the project need to meet in order to ensure that they're meeting all federal, state, and local requirements. This whole process approximately takes up to 180 days for us to evaluate and issue the authority to construct, which includes the public noticing period. Next slide, please. All that. Okay, on this slide here, this is after the project has the authority to construct issued. Kind of goes to where we continue on, and the facility has up to 2 years to go ahead and install the equipment that was authorized. There is provisions for that to be extended if needed for an additional 2 years, but for the most part, most projects are done within the 2-year time frame. So essentially, the facility will construct the equipment in accordance with the authority to construct permit, and they'll install the equipment. We then will be called out to do our inspections to ensure that the equipment is meeting all the standards, and typically have emission testing done to verify again that all requirements and emission standards are being met. And then lastly, if all that is done and everything is okay, then we'll issue the final permit to operate. Next slide, please. Go to the next slide. Okay, this is again kind of a little bit of a rehash of what we've heard, but it's the project. The SacSewer is a public service agency. The kind of important aspects of the project is again the fuel cell. It is a non-combustion device that takes essentially natural gas, digester gas, and can convert it to energy and also provide heat, which is needed in their digestion process. The next bullet says it uses the waste gas as a renewable fuel. Currently, the current operation prior to this project is the power and heat is coming from the SMUD facility next door, and or some of the power is being produced even farther away at the Consumers Power Plant. But nonetheless, the future is after this project is built, it would be that SacSewer makes their own power and heat. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide depicts that we received the applications in November of 2023. Our engineers did a full evaluation of the applications. There's essentially, as already been discussed, there's kind of three main components. They are the fuel cell, the internal combustion engine generators, and a third backup, a boiler to provide heat. So those are the kind of it's a total of 6 pieces of equipment, 3 different types of equipment. Each of those equipment, we went through the best available control technology determination, which has kind of already been alluded to. The SacSewer district provided their analysis, but we do an independent analysis where we look at all the equipment. Throughout the state, those particular individual types of equipment, we go through and do the research to see what is the best that's out there. Not only in the state, it is also nationwide. But for that, we typically refer to EPA. But because California has pretty much the most stringent standards in the nation, if not the world, most of the really stringent requirements come out of California. So that's that part of it. The other part of the health risk assessment. Again, we look at all the toxic emissions and pretty much anything out there, your vehicle that you drive, your stove that you cook your meals on, all emit some level of toxic air contaminants. I guess the art of it is to ensure that those aren't of a significant nature. So our health risk assessment, as we look at the emissions of the toxic pollutants, and we put it through a model to determine where the concentrations are around the facility. And from there, it goes into another model to calculate the actual health risks. Once we receive those results of that analysis, we compare them to acceptable levels to see whether or not the project is permissible as proposed. And in this case, the levels, and we'll see this in a later slide, were well within our acceptable standards. So again, the proposed project equipment meets all the regulations and equipment standards, and the project, because of the physical size of the emissions units, was above our emission offset trigger level. And so the project does have to provide emission reduction credits, which they're prepared to do by leasing credits through our community bank and Essential Public Services Bank. Next slide, please. If you were to look at the analysis, and I urge you to, if that interests you, You will notice that all the equipment is calculated at full 100% capacity, meaning that it's running 24/7 at full capacity. And I just want to say this is an extremely conservative approach, and the offsets that were required is based on that. And though, the SacSewer district has indicated that they are a 24/7 operation, which is true. Don't want to dispute that, but the equipment will never operate at 100% capacity, for the entire year. There's downtime for maintenance, there's, the way the project is designed, there's some redundancy, and it's built for future growth as Sacramento continues to grow and as the wastewater continues to, increase. There's built-in redundancy and capacity. So for the most part, though the emissions that we do our calculations on based on 100% capacity, the actual emissions will be, substantially less. And just to go back a little bit on the emission reduction credit, the ERCs, that will be provided from a loan from the district. Essentially, we have a community bank and essential public services bank that facilities, private companies as well as actual public companies can come to purchase, to lease the credits to offset their emissions. In order to do that and get approved by our district board, they have to consider that the extent that cleaner, innovative technologies have been used and that it will not impede the attainment of air quality standards. That is what we are proposing to our board. Next slide, please. Again, some of this has already been discussed, but just reiterate, the project that we are permitting is one fuel cell, 2.8 megawatts, 4 engines, approximately 2.7 megawatts each. Both of these equipment, the fuel cell and the engines, provide electricity and also provide heat to be used in the digestion process. And then there's one other 19.9 million BTU per boiler that will not generate electricity, that will only provide heat and will be used primarily if the fuel cell or the engines are unable to meet the demand required either due to maintenance or other reasons. Then they have the backup boiler that they can provide. So again, the boiler, if all's well, perhaps would be used not at all, substantially less than 100% capacity. In addition, this project replaces 3 boilers, much larger, 38 million BTUs per hour, that is currently at the facility. And again, just to reiterate, the equipment will use the waste gas, the digester gas, primarily, and then natural gas as needed in order to provide the necessary heat and to generate the electricity. Next slide, please. As was discussed, the fuel cell is, near zero technology or near zero emissions. And the hope is that it proves itself and it will operate, kind of the first order of business. But just to be clear, the engines are also there to provide the heat and the energy and will also operate. The boiler, as already indicated, is a bit of a backup. However, if needed, it will operate. And then lastly, as was discussed, the digester gas has to be controlled or destroyed or eliminated one way or another. If all the equipment is unable to handle the amount of digester gas created, the methane, it will go to the flares. But the idea is that this project will eliminate a good portion, if not or a major portion of what is currently being used or being sent to the flares currently. This slide is a little busy, I guess. It's there. I'll go on to some presentation in a moment, but this will give you an idea of what the emissions are from the individual pieces of equipment on a tons per year basis for the different pollutants that we look at. The HAP, that's HAP, that's hazardous air pollutants. That's over there, right? Let's just move on to the next slide, please. This slide again kind of shows you the relative emissions from all the different equipment. You have the fuel cell and then the engines. And then, well, that's for one engine. And then there is the boiler, and the combination of the fuel cell, 4 engines, and the boiler adds up to the all equipment scenario. We have it for volatile organic compounds, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter. And you can see that VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, and nitrogen oxides are ozone precursors. And those are the pollutants that are actually going to be, the emissions were high enough to require offsets. 2 emissions or pollutants are what is being offset. Then you have carbon monoxide, sulfur oxide. Next slide, please. No, I'm sorry. Go back to the carbon monoxide. I didn't realize you switched. Okay, so the carbon monoxide, sulfur oxides, and hazardous air pollutants. Again, just showing you the relative emissions for these types of equipment. Next slide, please. This slide shows it depicts kind of the health risk assessment summary. Our methodology is based on the California Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, and we determine the chemicals that are included in the health risk assessment, as well as the calculation methodology. And you can see from the table, we have cancer risk, acute non-cancer, and chronic non-cancer risk. Permitting thresholds are in gray, and the emissions from the project's results from the health risk assessment are in green. And again, there's a lot of conservatisms, including assuming 100% operation, and it's for 30 years of continuous use at those levels, which again, we kind of that, so I won't go into that much more. Next slide, please. One of the things, and Steve discussed it, is there's a regulation, state regulation called the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. And it essentially requires review of environmental impacts and public disclosure and mitigation of impacts. The SacSewer district conducted and developed an environmental impact report, and the Air District reviewed and commented on the draft EIR, and the EIR, environmental impact report, was approved in September of 2023. And that document can be seen in our evaluation under Appendix D. Next slide. This slide depicts our public notice procedure. We started the public notice in July 26 specifically. The comments, if one were to want to comment on the project, they need to submit written comments by August 26th. You can go to our website at www.airquality.org, and you will see a link called News and Notices. And from there, you'll see a list of projects that are undergoing public comment. And as far as the specifics, you can send your comments in by mail at the address shown, or you can email them to the engineer that was assigned to the project, Jeff Weiss, and his email address is there. And any comments that we receive, we will respond to. And depending on the extent and how significant the comment is, it potentially could change an aspect of the project, or if it's a matter of just, depending on the level of comment and whether or not the project needs to be changed in order to address it. If it doesn't, then again, the responses will be provided. Then next steps, Next slide, please. So at the end of August, as I just said, we're gonna review and address any of the public comments that we receive. And again, just when we say public, it's also our oversight agencies, California Air Resources Board and the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. We will issue the authority to construct permits, assuming we've addressed the comments and the project is good to go. And then on September 26th, emission offsets, as already alluded to, SacSewer District has requested to lease credits from Air District Board, well, our Air District Bank, and that needs to be heard by our Air District Board of Directors. And information on the emission offset credits requests will be made available to the public prior to going to the Board of Directors. And that concludes my presentation, and we're at a time where we will entertain any questions that you might have.
My name is Rhonda Henderson, and I'm on the South Sacramento Florida AB 617 Steering Committee. I'm also representing my community as the president of North Laguna Creek Valley High Community Association. And my first question is, has this particular technique, the biogen, been used elsewhere? And what were the results, the pros and cons?
The Biogen is the name, that's the name of the project. For the technology deployed internal combustion engines, yes, they're kind of the standard. Those are turbines are what typically gets put in at wastewater treatment plants to combust the gas, create electricity. A lot of wastewater treatment plants do this. Where we've added something that is different is the fuel cell. That is, that's a step that we've committed to for the community. And something, and not just for the community, again, hopefully for the state and broader than that. It's a technology, it's a near zero emission technology that once proven as successful, I think we're going to see a lot more of them. And we're proud to be a part of proving that technology. So hopefully we'll see more deployed in the future.
So you're saying it has not been used before, the fuel, what you call it?
The
Cell?
The fuel cell is a newer
It's new.
technology, newer. And the reason that we only have one of them, even though they're near zero emission technology, it's the balance that we tried to do in the project. We have enough firm capacity with our engines that they can combust all of the gas. So we won't have to flare if there is an issue with the fuel cell. But as Brian alluded to, if that fuel cell is operating as we hope and expect it to, it will be a good base load to of our fleet of generation there. And I think we would try to have that running in front of engines if it's operating well, because it is the least emitting technology.
So has any other area, California or elsewhere, used the fuel, what do you call it?
Fuel cell.
Fuel cell.
Yeah, there are other sewer agencies that have fuel cells. There's only a few. It's a new technology. It's emerging technology. It's, as Steve said, it's a greener technology than most everything else. So there are other agencies that have used it, and we have toured and visited some of those other agencies to check out their operations. But again, there's only a limited number because it's an emerging technology.
Another question is about the public service banks. And emission offsets, so they buy credits, they get credit or money from the bank in order to do the offsets?
No, essentially, and I probably kind of confused the issue, but essentially the emission reduction credits are where a project has reduced emissions and they bank that credit. And it goes into a bank, and we happen to have a community bank where we hold those credits. Then other companies that need to provide emission reduction credits to offset their emissions, they can go to the bank and essentially lease those credits so that they're offsetting their emissions. In other words, their emissions go, you know, when a project's emissions go up, another project went down, you know, the equal amount more because there's some trading ratios and such, but essentially they're offsetting those emissions so that the overall, yes, load to the environment remains relatively constant. That's the theory behind it.
Okay, thank you. I believe I heard one of you say that, this fuel cell thing will last 30 years. If so, do the levels of pollution increase over time? As it gets older?
When I mentioned 30 years wasn't necessarily the equipment life. It was that when we do our permit analysis, we, specifically the health risk assessment, we assume that the project runs for 30 years at the capacity, and in this case, full capacity for those 30 years. I'm not sure, and maybe the SacSewer could tell you what the expected life of that particular engine is. Shouldn't call it an engine, but the fuel cell.
The fuel cell, we expect that fuel cell to have a life of about 7 to 10 years. At that point, it would be replaced if we wanted to continue using it. Again, they're a relatively new technology. They only last approximately 7 to 10 years. So we would replace it in its entirety or components of it to make sure it's operating correctly and meeting the requirements of the project.
One clarification, the fuel cell itself, if you think of it as a big, it literally is, kind of looks like a big box. That protects a lot of their proprietary, their secret technologies and whatnot. The casing and whatnot would remain, but the main, it's called the module inside the fuel cell thing. You could think of it as the heart of the fuel cell. That is the 7 to 10 year life. That is the major cost of the fuel cell. That is something that we would be swapping out.
We have funds for that for the future?
Yeah, the sewer district is funded to do just that. The project requirement is that it must last 10 years. And the contractor is required, if it doesn't meet that time frame, they're required to replace it within those first 10 years. But then we have a maintenance contract that's going to also go through that 10 years. But after that point, we would have to, but after the 10-year mark, if we had to replace it again, we would have to refund that. And that would be in our 10-year financial plan that we typically put out to the public.
Thank you for your questions. I think we'll give it just one more minute for any online questions to see if anything else pops up for anybody.
Actually, yes, I have a question, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jesus Cervantes from Mesa Grande Neighborhood Association. The way it is now, in our area, very often we have problems with the odor. As you know, South Sacramento has one of the worst air quality levels, and we have to deal with that odor from this facility. We will be working with one of your employees, and he has been very responsive. But I'm afraid that now with the implementation that you guys are doing, I mean, is this something that is gonna dissipate or we're gonna be dealing with again?
The question was on odor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this project isn't expected to either increase or decrease odor. Odor is a nuisance for the surrounding area, and we do have odor control technologies out there that are separate from this, completely separate from this project. That we monitor and we use to reduce odors, and we field, odor complaints, and we respond to them, like you said, we've been very responsive to the complaints. We have a service level of only having so many odor complaints in a particular, over a particular timeframe, a year or a month. That we usually meet those service levels, and we work with the community to help respond and determine what the source of the odor is, and then make operational adjustments to account for that odor. One thing that helps us significantly that other plants don't have, we have 2,000 acres of bufferlands area that surrounds our plant. So it really acts just like its name, as a bufferlands, and helps dissipate any nuisance that we may have, whether it be noise, light, odor, dust, what have you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions, other questions online? Or in the audience?
Ain't the hog the show, but I'm trying to get my questions answered. So in regards to odors that we have experienced in the past, I live right off of Franklin and Calvin. So there have been times the odor was just unbearable. So is that dangerous to us? How does that impact air quality and our health?
The odors themselves have no risk or threat at all. It's truly just a nuisance, a very unwelcome one. I completely understand. I'd like to make sure that you have contact information on our side. So if you do experience odors, you can let us know and we can respond. We can come investigate. We will come out to your site, investigate, try to experience the odors ourselves, and then go back to try to track down where they're coming from, and then make operational adjustments. Over the past 10 years, we did a very big project, a plant expansion called Echo Water Project. And that project required us to operate the treatment plant, to shut down certain areas and store sewage for a period of time. That during that project, over the past 10 years, we've had increased level of odor complaints and issues with it. That project is done. We are now completely done with that project. We are an advanced tertiary treatment plant. We got a few new odor removal technologies out there, and we're also in the process of upgrading one of our older existing odor removal technologies that will hopefully help reduce the number of odors. But I want to make sure you have the right contact information. So if you do experience it, we know about it.
Will this increase the green jobs or?
It may not increase green jobs, but it will make our jobs more green. If that makes any sense. We won't add any jobs because of this, because there's some of the technology we're using now to heat and provide heating goes away because we're upgrading to a new system. And we'll just refocus that staff to the new system. So there's no job creation. We just get to do it in a greener fashion.
Again, any online questions, you can go ahead and raise your hand. I heard someone come off unmute at one point, so just double checking we didn't have somebody that had a question. And I will check one more time for the audience if there are any questions. Okay, with that, I'll give a few more comments, just to close the meeting out. Again, I want to thank, our representatives from SacSewer, Steve and Sunny, for coming to answer the questions this evening and give their overview of this important project. Also like to thank Brian Krebs, our permitting manager, for going over the details. Everyone. And lastly, just to remind you that this project in the evaluation is under the public comment period, that ends on August 26th. So please do submit any comments that you have, and the information was included in the presentation that you can find today. You can also reach out to the Air District at airquality.org to find information, or you can call our line, this line at 279-207-1122. And with that, we'll go ahead and close the meeting, and thank you very much for your participation.